Morning all, happy free comic book day to all of you. I'm not working today as a comic retailer, so thank every deity that doesn't exist ever for that. But I felt a bit guilty out of getting out of it because I half killed myself last year and I promised myself I'm not going to go through that again, not for at least a year, so I have got today off. However, as I'm recording this, the shops haven't quite opened yet. The guys are probably at various shops putting stuff together, doing the last minute dusting and panicking and going like double checking to make sure there's no swears in any of them like there was in Attack on Titan last year. So what I thought I'd do is record a little video to tell you the stuff to keep an eye out for that you might have missed, right? Because if you get there, there's going to be a flurry of material and there's going to be like at least 5 dozen covers, and you're most likely to get drawn into the Secret Empire one, or the Wonder Woman one, or the Guardians of the Galaxy one, and that's fine. But there is other good stuff. And I abused my powers as a retailer to take some of them home last night so I could have a look through. So I could run you through some of the more interesting or esoteric stuff that's going to be in some of the lineups of the shops. And maybe go for those. So without any further ado, here's number 1, which is the Riverdale one. Now, light's a bit funny on this camera, so let me make sure you can see what you're seeing. The Riverdale one is a prelude to the Riverdale show that just finished on Netflix. It fills in a couple of the short stories which happen, like why does Archie know Miss Grundy, and what is going on with Veronica and Miss Lodge. It's rather lovely. I'll try and do this so I don't give away any spoilers, but just so you can get a basic idea of what the art looks like. So yeah, there's very sexy, not Jason Priestley, is it? It's Luke Perry. Luke Perry, who plays Archie's dad in the show. Who, well, I wouldn't, but I could see why you would. So that's pretty cool, and there's another Veronica story here. So yeah, and also, it's a very sweet little comic, and it's got supplementary materials, and it's got pictures of Veronica, who is by far my favourite character in most TV at the moment, and there's a little advert for the other things you could be getting, like the Afterlife of Archie comic, which you should totally be getting because it's like the best horror comic of the 21st century except Grindhouse. So yeah, that's Riverdale. It's very good. You get to know loads of stuff about the TV show, and my god, if you haven't seen the climax of Riverdale, if anybody tries to tell you the ending, punch them in the face and then go watch it. Next up, I Hate Image. I don't, but that's what the comic's called. So I Hate Image is a takeoff of I Hate Fairyland, which is Scott Young's recent Image creation, which is essentially Alice in Wonderland meets Little Nemo in Slumberland, but the lead character is quite horrible, but not in a bad way, but in a kind of like will not take well to given situations of authority, which if you hang about in comics long enough, then that's what you're going to be smart enough to become. So I Hate Fairyland is our lead character, which is little green-haired girl here. Yeah, so that's her, and she goes through the process of finding the Image universe, starting off with everybody's wacky favourite, The Walking Dead, and then travelling on to yada 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 yada. More Walking Dead. More Walking Dead. Oh, so there's a nightclub with David Bowie, so I assume that's probably the club from Sex, or maybe Sex Criminals. But I've been wrong before, feel free to correct me. Look at this double page spread. Look, they're all just twatting each other. It's like Sergio Aragonés or George Perez at his best, though. Oh, shout out to George Perez, glad you got over that operation, man. Massive love for you and your lovely artwork. But while doing that, the Dark Knight special that every artist aspires to, but nobody's really good at it, but Scotty is, and he does a bit of Spawn and Our Young Lady flying through the air with the greatest of ease, so that's quite good. Yeah, it's just a cool little thing. There's also the black and white cover, for those, just to avoid the sort of people who get hung up on variant covers. There you go, don't worry about it, you've got the variant there. Just realised I forgot to switch my phone off, and I've got like the Assassin's Creed music as my notification, so everything sounds a bit godly, which I think is quite a nice idea. Oh, so yeah, you get a nice little pen up as well. So that is I Hate Image. You want that, it's very good, and if you've not read I Hate Fairyland, most of the shops who are participating in this have got this, will have the first trade paperback as a kind of like, oh, you like this? Buy that. Buy it. It's great. Next up, change of tone. Fantagraphics, the world's greatest cartoonist. Last year they did the Love and Rockets one-shot as in order to promote the new issue. So all of their material was dedicated to making sure you knew what Love and Rockets was. Most good shops should have Love and Rockets 1 and 2 in stock, and ask them for it, because it's great. If they've only got issue 2, just buy issue 2, because every issue is a standalone thing. It is one of the greatest comics ever created. Love and Rockets, one of the greatest comics ever created. Back to Fantagraphics. So this is a portfolio, a sampler of some of their better people that they've got working for them. So there's likes of Richard Starler in here and Ed Piskor, who wrapped up Hip Hop Family Tree, which is one of the greatest biopic comics of all time. Just a rundown on the history of hip hop, and very interesting stuff it is. And he blends that with an appreciation for old comics. So you'll get something like Run DMC coming out to the giant size X-Men cover, and or stuff of that vein. I want to try and keep this brief because, you know, I think it's running quite close to when the shops are opening. I want to get this uploaded before they do, so you've got this. So, yeah. So there's some beautiful stuff in here. All kinds of autobiographical malarkey going on. Some Richard Starler in here, some Dash Shaw. If you don't know who those guys are, ask the guys at the shop to show you stuff by them. Oh yeah, here's the Richard Starler. This is my main reason for pointing out, because I really like Richard Starler. So creepy and so good, with like so few lines at invoking just really razor sharp horror, just like paring the concept down to the absolute worst that you could imagine. Speaking of the absolute worst you could imagine, there's a strip featuring Donald Trump. It's a wrestling parody comic, which I was not aware of until I looked at this comic, but Mr. America is up there. Oddly, and I hope this is an intentional reference, one of Hulk Hogan's personas over the year when he wrestled Mr. McMahon in 2004, I believe. And there was something else that really grabbed me, and it was something about a dude being motivated by Crumb to draw comics about porn. Here we go. So this is fairly deep, fairly introspective work, probably entirely appropriate for a Saturday morning with a shop full of kids, I would imagine. So yeah, go for that. That is, to repeat, the world's greatest comics, and it is a portfolio comic by Fantagraphics. Fantagraphics are one of my favourite publishers of all time, responsible for stuff like 8-Ball and Love and Rockets, obviously, and Hate, and just, if you buy a Fantagraphics book, it's going to be good. But I would totally recommend a Love and Rockets or a Hip Hop Family Tree as a starter. A quick look at this one, just because from Fantagraphics 2, the Colourful Monsters book, put out by Drawn and Quarterly. Let me double check I've got that right. Yeah, it is. So, Colourful Monsters, the main attraction. Get a few copies of this if you can. It's got a big old Moomin strip in it. Lots and lots of Moomin's goodness for your person. Even if you're not particularly a comic fan, any good shop would have got lots of this, because the Moomins is one of those things that totally transcends the medium it's in. In the same way that people from New Zealand may not particularly like comics, if they see a comic shop, they'll go in and say, have you got any Phantom? Because apparently the Phantom is huge in New Zealand. Who knew? I didn't know. It was comics that taught me that. So yeah, if you like the Moomins, go get this, because there is lots and lots and lots of Moomin's goodness. There's like 12 or 13 pages of it. And yeah, it's free, because it's free comic book day. Go get free comics. Not penultimate. What's the third one from penultimate? Trolltimate? No, anyway. So, I mention this mainly because this is probably one of the most significant and important organisations involved with comics, which is the Comic Book Legal Defence Fund. A lot of people talk about what ought to be done about regulating comics and being able to say what needs to be said in comics. So if you have a thing like a Persepolis, which is a significant work that ought to be recognised as a document of a person's life affected in that situation. There are people who would not want that book to be released because it portrays a government in a negative light. There are people who do not like Love and Rockets because it portrays homosexuals in a sympathetic light. There are people who believe that there are racist overtones to Bone, which is a stretch that I do not understand, but I'm willing to believe other people believe. And that's fine. People are entirely free to read any subtext into work that they like. They are free to have any prejudice against any characters or sexual tastes they want. They are entirely free to have those beliefs. When they say, this comic should not be in a library, free to everyone, because I personally have a problem with what's the content of that stuff, of the portrayal of sympathetic lesbians or a account of the Holocaust, or that Sandman would promote satanic rituals. That is not a legitimate argument. That is not a thing where people should have the power to say, because of my beliefs, this library, this college, this shop cannot stock this material and it should be removed from the general lexicon of the cultural psyche. And there's not a lot of people who know how to deal with that. The Comic Book Legal Defence Fund do. They have been very successful over the years of defending colleges, defending libraries, defending shops who have been prosecuted or attacked for stocking material that is not loved by everyone. And I believe the world would be much sadder without the existence of a Love and Rockets, or a Bone, or a Mouse, or a Persepolis, or List Your Case Here. If you pick up this, it's got a number of short strips in it documenting a few funny things, but also why the notion of free speech is an important one. And it will give you the link to check out their website, which is, just to make sure I've got it right, cbldf.org. That's there in case you can't understand my first speech. cbldf.org. They are fully worthy of your support. If you've ever enjoyed a comic that has material that you may have thought might be contentious, like a saga or a Sex Criminals, it's partly down to these guys protecting the right of those comics to be published. So I cannot recommend these guys enough. If you take nothing else away from this, support the Comic Book Legal Defence Fund. They're the most significant organisation that pertains to comics for years. So yeah, pick this up and just help us keep doing what we're doing and not be a Pollyanna. We're only going to have nice things happen in comics and only nice people are going to make art and it's only going to be this culturally acceptable, because you can't trust those people. You can't. You won't get a full spectrum of what is and isn't acceptable. You'll just get the most common denominator stuff. If you look at other media, what you get is the most common denominator. You get Coldplay, you get Celebrity Big Brother, you get endless Marvel movies. I don't want to live in a world that's so narrow a field of vision, so unwilling to confront reality as it is. Saying that, let's move to an Adam Hughes comic. So, the penultimate one is a reprint of Betty and Veronica #1. Betty and Veronica #1 is a comic by Adam Hughes, which, as denotes, is a comic about the relationship between Betty and Veronica. It knows exactly what it is, right? Adam Hughes, as you can see from the cover, draws very, very, very pretty ladies. He doesn't do ongoing comics very frequently because it takes him quite a while to draw interior art, because when you're this good, it takes a long time to be this good. So, I think it's one of the funniest comics in quite a long time. It knows exactly what it's doing, and it knows what it is, and it plays off the perceptions of the reader, while telling a funny and engaging and interesting story. It is obviously Betty and Veronica from the Archie universe, from Riverdale. So if you're watching Riverdale, you know where these characters come from. It's a pretty good place to start. It's beautiful, and it's a free Adam Hughes comic. And you get... Oh man, I'm not going to reveal that. It's pretty funny, but I don't want to blow that here. It's just gorgeous. And you get the other Riverdale extraneous material as you did in the the Riverdale comic. So yeah, pick this up. It's a free Adam Hughes comic about Riverdale. I don't know how else to tell you that you should pick this up. It's free. It's Adam Hughes. It's Betty and Veronica. Finally. And this is totally a personal thing, but it is my favourite, just subjectively, on an artistic level. I can't believe these are the words I'm going to say, but if you go to a comic shop today, on Free Comic Book Day, you can get the first chapter of the Incal for free. I believe this is the first time that Humanoids have delved into Free Comic Book Day. And they've started with what I can only call a banger of a first go. It's on... I mean, I'm not a paper nerd or anything, but this is really shiny, nice, lovely, glossy paper cardstock. And it's the recolouring of the Incal by Mebius and Jodorowsky, who is probably the greatest writer in any medium. That is not subjective opinion, that is objective fact. And if you don't agree, then you're free to look in the comments, but I'm not stupid enough to look at YouTube comments because life is short and fleeting, so enjoy every second of it you can. Which is what I learned from Jodorowsky and his great writings. This thing is just freaking beautiful because it's a Mebius comic on glossy paper. This... I can genuinely say there are people who have read the Incal and there are people who haven't, and there's such a difference in what those people have not experienced yet. And I'm so jealous of the people in the world who have never read the Incal yet, because it's one of the greatest stories of all time. The Fifth Element, which I believe has Jodorowsky and Mebius' hand in it, is a very truncated but effective and lovely retelling of this. In fact, the only thing that the Incal doesn't have that the Fifth Element does have is Bruce Willis. Because obviously every good movie has Bruce Willis in it, and that's just how that works. The piano would have been much better with Bruce Willis running around in it. My god, this thing's so gorgeous. I'm actually forgetting to talk to you rather than just, oh, look at the pretty art. So yeah, you get a hella chunk of this thing as well. Like, it's quite a lot for a free comic on this paper. So yeah, I will confess an ulterior motive, which is I am one of the booth babes for Humanoids whenever they visit London, so you may well see me, but that's completely unrelated to why I like this. The reason I would work for Humanoids is because I do stuff like this. Because I publish material like this. I'm not someone who can work for many comic publishers. I say in the most diplomatic way possible, but most of what Humanoids puts out is something I'm quite happy to say, yeah, actually, that's good stuff. So, if you're liking the look of this, and you're in a good comic shop, they should also have things like The White Llama, or Son of the Gun, or The Meta Barons, or The Techno Priests, which is other material written by Jodorowsky. There's a Mebius collection called The World of Adina, which is the first volume of the books that Dark Horse started putting out. So yeah, if you take away nothing else from this video except for this. Two things. One, support the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. And two, pick this up. It's one of the greatest comics ever written. I can't believe it's free. It's by Mebius. If you don't know who Mebius is, my god, you are in for a treat. And that is my roundup. The only thing left to say is if you're getting free stuff out of a comic shop today, please buy stuff. In the UK, this stuff is not free. It is a lot of work to put together today. I am so grateful not to be working today because I know how much hard work it is to do it. And by supporting the shops, you get to keep us letting us do stuff like this. So we get to do Free Comic Book Day, and everyone comes along and has a good time and goes like, oh wow, I've never heard of this. Please tell me more about it. Buy a thing. It would be great. There's whole realms of comics that any good member of staff in a comic shop can tell you about. You'll benefit from it, and you'll feel better for it. I promise you. So that is it. Good luck to all of my friends in the comics industry who are behind a counter right now, drinking a coffee, dusting off every last thing, absolutely nervous. Every last cosplayer who is adjusting their costume just to make sure all the folds are taken out. Me, I'm gonna be reading some comics. So enjoy! Happy Free Comic Book Day, everyone. NEVS is out.